You are entering the science fiction zone, with a capital Z, or Z if you must, a region of strangeness deployed in the telling of many a science fiction tale. In these places then, things are not quite right. These zones may have biology gone wrong, they may have strange effects on the mind of those that visit, and they may contain danger to body as well. The very laws of physics, or even time, may operate differently here. For the next 15 or 20 minutes, you and I are going to explore some of the weird zones of SF. For this first group of zones, we're strictly on Earth. Published in 2019, Chris Beckett's Beneath the World at Sea, a recent read for me, is set in the Submundo Delta, which seems to be in or near Brazil. The Delta is isolated and isolating. It's surrounded by a zone of oblivion, of forgetting. To reach the Delta or to leave, you must pass through this zone. Passing through is fine, but you will remember nothing. What did you do while you were there? What does a person uninhibited by memories or the observations of others do? If that weren't strange enough, the submundo, literally the underworld, is itself a zone of strange biology. People by tribes descended from those moved there 200 years ago to provide a ready labour force in anticipation of a development that never really happened. Along with the people, there is strange biology. The plant and animal life is unlike anything else on Earth. Many consider it to be extraterrestrial in origin, or at the very least, evolution has taken a very different path here. Then there's the duende, strange, not quite humanoid beings that seem to have telepathic powers, emphasising in humans any negative thoughts or self-doubts, dark feelings. The expats are there for different reasons, many feeling trapped by the trippy feeling that the Delta seems to exert on them, a draining sense of lethargy, and by reluctance to re-enter the forgetting zone that surrounds the Delta. Beckett does a great job, I think, of evoking a blurry, dreamlike state in his writing, similar to the effects on the people in the zone. The forests and wildlife of the Delta are beautifully described, especially the duende and their odd, inscrutable behaviour. Is the Delta malevolent, playful, or just plain alien? Our next book is perhaps the most notable zone book, the Ur-text that many others riff off. In Roadside Picnic by Boris and Arkady Strugatsky, the featured visitation zone is one of 6 on Earth, each the scene of a brief, uninterested and unseen extraterrestrial event lasting just 2 days. Each of these visitation zones contains the after effects of this visit, the detritus, the polluted leavings. The zones are hazardous, fenced off, entry barred lest some form of contamination escape into the wider world. In spite of the restrictions and the dangers, a thriving black market exists in technology and substances from the zone, anything which might turn a quick buck. The zone exerts a strange influence over the nearby towns. There's the nature of the artifacts themselves, the substances left behind such as the hell slime, which dissolves bone on contact, highly sought after as a potential weapon. Even our understanding of physics is undermined by the zone. There's also the small matter of resurrections, with the dead that were buried in the zone returning to their homes as if nothing had happened, but not quite whole, slow-moving but harmless zombies. A scientist in the book makes the analogy that we humans think nothing of stopping for a break on a long journey, perhaps for an overnight stop, much to the distress and incomprehension of any nearby small animals. When we depart, the animals are left with the bits and pieces, the rubbish, the discarded or forgotten objects, all of which will be meaningless and totally unexplained. We are the animals of this story then, unable to understand or use what's left to us in the zone. Roadside Picnic is a classic of the zone. Borrowing heavily from Roadside Picnic, The Man Who Would Be Kling is a novella by Adam Roberts which features the Afghani zone. This is a region of unexplained origin which kills all humans that enter it, or at least none have re-emerged to date alive. A bored UN investigator is interviewing a woman that has seemingly bucked the trend, having recently emerged from a trek into the Afghani zone. Her sidekick is missing, presumed dead. We get hints and glimpses of the effects in the zone. The amusing premise of this story is that the two were such committed Star Trek cosplayers, even to the extent of suitable cosmetic surgery, that they convinced themselves that they were, in fact, a Klingon and a Vulcan. Not being human, then, might they be able to withstand the extreme psychological effects of the Afghani zone? The 21st century big daddy of the zone, the new kid on the block, is Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy, starting with Annihilation in 2014. Area X, the zone of this tale, is an unspecified coastal region that has been abandoned and restricted for 3 decades. The subject of 11 prior missions, all of which ended in the death of the team sent in, Area X remains unexplained. The 12th mission to be sent in consists of an unnamed 4-woman team made of the biologist, the psychologist, the anthropologist and the surveyor. And in common to a lot of these zonal stories, Area X has immediate effects on the women. They quickly develop paranoid delusions, secret protocols are invoked, and encounters are had with fungal outgrowths, and things are generally speaking weird. Annihilation is narrated by the biologist, who, it transpires, is the wife of a member of a previous expedition, all of whom suddenly reappeared after being missing for a protracted period, but with no memory, and it turns out, a severely reduced shelf life. The biologist encounters a fungal being, what seem to be hybrid creatures, and she finds her husband's journals from his expedition, and she begins to question her entire understanding of Area X. I'm yet to read the other 2 books in the trilogy, but I did enjoy Annihilation when I read it last year. In Robert Charles Wilson's Darwinia, the zone is the whole of Europe. In a cataclysmic event in 1912, Europe as we know it, the cities, the people, the cars, buildings, animals, all of it disappears. Only the basic geography is the same. Mostly. In its place is an alien, primordial, Jurassic landscape of strange plants and even stranger animals, all harmful or incompatible to varying degrees with humans. And whilst the remnants of Europe's empire tried to cling on and rebuild in their former territories, the Americans, led by a newly resurgent religious party, spy an opportunity and send an exploration team. Guilford Law, a boy at the time of the 1912 miracle, signs up as the official photographer on this voyage, dragging his reluctant wife along with him. I had geared up for just this exploration, and that was my expectation of Darwinia, and I was happy to go along for the ride whilst that was the case. I really enjoyed the descriptions of a very rustic London, of the wildlife, and the revelations as the voyage progresses further into the continent. Wilson then flips the tables on us, and the second half of the book is very different. Let's just say that all is not as it seems in this zone. Darwinia is a symptom. Much larger forces are at play, and Earth and its resident humans are merely bit players. Next, we consider a couple of zones where the normal rules don't seem to apply. Our next book has many of the features of a zone. Certainly it's strange, but the zone is imposed culturally rather than it being a physical or biological or extraterrestrial oddity. China Mieville's The City in the City transports us to the eerie parallel worlds of Basel and Ulcoma, 2 Eastern European city-states that occupy the same physical space, but are perceived as entirely separate by their citizens. This is no ordinary tale of parallel worlds. The cities literally occupy the same space, intertwined with each other street by street and sometimes building by building. And this bizarre dual existence hinges on a strict cultural and legal mandate. Walking the very same streets, citizens must unsee the other city and its inhabitants, erasing it from their minds as though it doesn't exist, even when elements of the 2 cities are physically intertwined. From a young age, residents learn to differentiate between the cities based on subtle cues like architecture, language, and fashion. The threat of breaching or accidentally acknowledging the other city looms large, with severe consequences enforced by a mysterious organisation known as the Breach. This shadowy force is the ultimate authority in the cities, erasing breaches from existence when they cross the invisible lines between the cities. Despite the weirdness, The City in the City is a police procedural with a murder investigation spanning the 2 cities, and it's well worth a read. Get ready to have your mind bent. Christopher Priest's Inverted World is set in a zone, seemingly a whole planet, where normal physics doesn't apply. Instead of a finite world in an infinite universe, Priest imagines an infinite world in a finite universe. In this topsy-turvy zone, the city of Earth is pulled along hurriedly laid train tracks. The city must move to stay close to the so-called optimum. It's strongly implied in the histories, the law of the guilds that run the show, that bad things will happen if it does not. It's the obsession of the guilds to ensure that linear progress is made daily, to the point where even people's age is measured in miles travelled. We get hints of the odd effects in the zone when citizens venture outside. Ranging even a couple of days' trek behind the cities triggers strange warp effects. Even time itself doesn't behave normally. Similar but opposite effects result as members of the Navigator Guild range ahead of the city to recce the route. Christopher Priest gradually unravels the mysteries of this strange zone, and by the end of the book all is explained, much to the great surprise of the protagonist. In On, another entry by Adam Roberts, there's a similarly dramatic change to the rules of physics. In this version of Earth, gravity operates differently, or rather, the ground as we know it is vertical. Life clings onto this wall on a variety of shelves, natural prominences and outcrops, balconies and ladders. It's quite unsettling as a plot device. I felt repeatedly jarred by events. I found I was reading it with my head on one side, trying to imagine how this world works. The protagonist, a young lad seemingly of 8 years old, is pushed off the wall. Disaster is averted by a soft landing, and he gets co-opted into a flying corps, through which we get to explore the wall from a distance and to visit the limits of the environment. We get hints during the book that it has not always been this way, by the inclusion of what seem like man-made relics in the face of the wall. There is a perhaps overlong section set in a strange forest growing out of the wall, full of slithery creatures with big teeth. And the book ends rather abruptly, but I did enjoy the sense of oddness that runs through it. Before we go on, if you're enjoying this video, please do hit the like button, it helps more than you think. Also, tell me what science fiction novels or short stories can you think of that contain similar zones? Have I missed any? Do let us know in the comments below. Another recent read for me, In Ascension by MacInnes, introduces us to an undersea zone. A team of scientists investigates a newly appeared hydrothermal vent deep in the sea off the coast of South America. It's deep, very deep, several kilometres deeper in fact than the Marianas Trench. What new kinds of life might have evolved here? Why is the seabed cratered in such a regular oval shape, and why has it suddenly appeared? Despite some necessary caution, there are imperatives to proceed. The nautical mission is testing equipment for a future voyage in a much larger ocean, outer space. The research vessel itself appears to be repelled by the zone. There are strange lights, and on entering the waters above the zone, the divers experience blackouts, illness, psychosis, and even suicidal tendencies. Despite this, they are strangely drawn to returning, and not solely for scientific reasons. MacInnes generates a sense of profound strangeness, of mystery, of wonder, and later in the book, the horizons expand yet further. For our next books, we're zooming out. We're going into Planetary. A new book this year, Alien Clay by the disgracefully prolific Adrian Tchaikovsky, features Kling, an exoplanet, not settled exactly, but certainly explored by humans in the form of a penal colony. There are plenty of human characters in the story, but the star of the show, the thing that makes it a zone in my view, is the biology of Kling. Tchaikovsky does a wonderful job of describing the strange plants and animals, and along with the human exploration teams, we become aware that biology here is modular. Different creatures can evolve by combining different modules in different ways. Evolution happens fast here as a result, with biology constructed ad hoc to respond to changing conditions. Need wider feet for wading? Strap on a wider feet module. The biology would be interesting enough on its own, but what really makes Kling a zone in science fiction terms is the effect that it has on the humans. Despite biosafety precautions, life finds a way, and there is inevitable leakage into the population holed up in a prison camp, a significant factor in the denouement for the book. Back to our solar system for the next book, Rogue Moon by Algis Budrys. An artifact is found on the moon, a labyrinth, and this labyrinth plays the part of the zone here, exerting strange and fatal effects on all who enter it to explore. The labyrinth has its own set of rules, but they are not shared with us mere mortals. Each death reveals a little more of the safe route through, but the body count is piling up. There is a solution in the form of a matter transmitter which can replicate a person and send a copy as a signal to the moon. Their replicated double, their doppelganger, is sent into the labyrinth while the original reclines, sedated but aware, back on Earth. The labyrinth is able to reach out and wield its zonal effects even so, as the doppelganger's experiences and ultimately death in zone drives their originals insane. Now we're going interstellar, or galactic even. Yes, zones in science fiction can be vast. The Kefauchi tract is a disturbance in the space-time continuum, a singularity without an event horizon, an object of awe and wonder that has been the ruin of many a civilization attempting to decode its mysteries. The tract features in 3 novels by M. John Harrison, most notably for our purposes in the second book, Nova Swing, where a chunk of the tract has fallen to the surface of a beach planet. The boundary region of the tract is known as the Kefauchi Beach. The focus of Nova Swing is the event site, the port area affected by the fall. The appearance of the port area and the buildings in it has been altered. Even the laws of physics are different now. Harking back to Roadside Picnic, the site has become a tourist attraction, with guides organising tours into the chaotic and unpredictable zone. The sneaking of items out of the zone by tourists is a police matter, and here Harrison adds a layer of police procedural to the weirdness of the zone, a noir element even. If Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation or China Mieville's writing appeal to you, then Nova Swing, winner of both the Arthur C. Clarke and Philip K. Dick Awards, might well work for you too. Vernor Vinge conceives of zones spanning galactic distances. The zones of thought are defined by the density of stars, the gravity and radiation levels at the core, for example, generating a zone which only minimal intelligence, whether artificial or biological, are possible. The unthinking depths are not just a notional restriction. A spaceship entering the depths would be rendered inoperable and its crew reduced to very basic intelligence. Next comes the slow zone, in which us humans have evolved. Certain levels of intelligence are possible here, thankfully, as is space travel, but truly sentient artificial intelligence cannot be made to work here. These AIs are required to calculate the jumps for FTL, so space travel in the slow zone is slow, well below light speed. And still further out is the beyond zone, where artificial intelligence and thus FTL travel and communications are possible. In Vinge's story, humans have crawled into the beyond, establishing a small footprint, the descendants of one Norwegian starship that made it across the boundary. The outermost zone is the transcend, where inscrutable super-intelligent beings live. The boundaries of the zones are not known and are changeable even. There's galactic weather, which can cause sudden shifts in the boundaries. Ships operating in the bottom of the beyond zone must be equipped with secondary Bussard ramjet engines, lest they be stranded in the slow zone, the FTL engines inoperative. The zones of thought are interesting in their own right, but also provide a constraint, an operating system if you like, that Vinge uses well in The Fire Upon the Deep, a science fiction classic that is well worth your time if you haven't read it. If you enjoyed this thematic video, you might take a look at this one too. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye for now.